The elderly black janitor at the SEAL training facility had long been the target of ridicule. They called him Gramps, kicking over his mop bucket and laughing with satisfaction. No one noticed how he quietly observed their drills with the precision of a soldier. No one realized how his old body could still move with surprising strength when no one was watching. Everything changed when a young recruit, Cole Rollins, accidentally saw the trident tattoo on the man's side. A clear Navy SEAL symbol, but with mysterious numbers no current generation could recognize. That was when the truth began to surface. Elijah Rowe was not just a janitor. He was a shadow from the past, a forgotten legend. A phantom echo operator, a veteran of covert missions the government tried to erase from history. And now his presence shakes the foundation of power, threatening those who thought their darkest secrets, buried deep in the Cambodian jungle, would never return. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow's episode will be even more intense. Chapter 1. The Janitor. The rusted pickup truck groaned to a halt just outside the gates of the Yao Naval Special Warfare Training Facility. Dust rose from the dirt road, clinging to the windshield like old secrets. Behind the wheel sat a local delivery man, cigarette dangling from his lips. He didn't bother to make eye contact. "This is as far as I go, old-timer. Base is through there." The passenger door creaked open. A worn black duffel bag hit the ground first, followed by the slow descent of Elijah Rowe, a wiry old man in battered boots and a faded brown work jacket. His dark skin bore the wear of decades in the sun, and his eyes missed nothing. The truck rattled off, leaving him in a wash of gravel and silence. Elijah turned toward the facility, his expression unreadable, his gait steady. He moved like someone who didn't need to prove anything, someone who already had. At the gate, the young guard looked up from his clipboard with mild confusion. "Help you?" "I'm expected," Elijah said, his voice a low, gravel-lined whisper. He reached into his jacket and unfolded a slip of paper. The guard glanced at it, blinked, and frowned. "Custodial staff," he muttered. "Nobody told me about a new hire." After a brief radio call, the guard waved him through with a shrug. "Report to Building C. Somebody'll show you around." No salute, no further questions. Good. Inside the facility, the rhythm of elite military training pounded like a war drum. Boots on dirt, barked orders, the sharp crack of live fire on the distant range. None of it fazed Elijah. He'd seen far worse. He walked with his duffel slung over one shoulder, moving past young recruits who didn't spare him more than a dismissive glance. To them, he was a ghost even before they knew the truth. In Building C, a flustered admin assistant looked up from her desk. "You must be the new janitor," she said, squinting at her screen. "Civilian contractor placement, right?" Elijah nodded once. "We need the help," she said with a sigh, pointing toward a map. "Storage room behind the mess hall. There's a cot. Probably not what you're used to, but it'll do." "It'll do," Elijah echoed, voice quiet. He didn't smile, but something about the way he stood made her pause. That afternoon, Elijah began his work. He moved like clockwork, mopping floors with clean, precise strokes, fixing leaking pipes without being asked, sorting tools with military efficiency. He returned everything to its place, always. By dinner time, his presence had been noted, especially by a group of young men gathered near the back of the mess hall. Cole Rollins, lean and cocky, leaned back in his chair and nodded toward the janitor, wiping down trays alone. "Check out Grandpa," he snickered. "What is this, retirement home day?" Laughter followed, crude and loud. Someone mimed a cane. Another tipped over an empty mop bucket. "Bet he can't even lift it," one of them added. At a nearby table, a recruit named Logan Vance didn't laugh. He just watched, his jaw tight, his expression unreadable. Unlike the others, Logan wasn't just another recruit. His father owned Vance Defense Technologies, a powerhouse private military firm. Logan was destined for command, and he knew it. He saw the old man and frowned, not with mockery, but with contempt. "What's someone like that even doing here?" he muttered under his breath. "This is the Navy's elite, not a shelter for old janitors." Across the room, another set of eyes watched Elijah. Raina Cruz, one of the few women in the program, had kept her head down for weeks, but she noticed things. She noticed how Elijah moved like he knew the timing of everything, how he returned a misplaced tray to the exact inch, how he avoided looking at the seal patches on anyone's uniform, but never once forgot their name. That night, Elijah made his way to the tiny room behind the mess hall. No photos, no medals, just a cot, a shelf, and a flickering bulb overhead. He pulled off his boots slowly, revealing a deep scar trailing down his ankle, one that spoke of shrapnel, not age. Then he reached under the cot, lifted a loose floorboard, and slid something beneath it, a cloth-wrapped bundle. Inside the bundle, untouched, was an old metal badge, a Navy SEAL trident. The surface was worn, but the engraving beneath it remained clear. 6874, E. Rowe. He closed the floorboard. No one knew him. Not anymore. But that was about to change. Chapter 2. The Trident. The next morning arrived cloaked in fog, as if the base itself was unsure whether it wanted to reveal what lay beneath its polished surface. Recruits were already on the obstacle course, mud splattered across their camo uniforms, barking out counts with military precision. Elijah Rowe was already moving long before they began, mop in hand, shoulders steady. He had spent years waiting. Now the pieces were moving. Inside the mess hall, Cole Rollins swaggered past the breakfast line, flanked by two of his usual followers. "Morning, Grandpa," he called over his shoulder, watching the janitor push a cart of cleaning supplies. Elijah didn't respond. He just kept mopping. That annoyed Cole more than he cared to admit. "Hey, maybe he can teach us something," one of the other recruits joked. "Like how to dodge questions and scrub shame." Cole laughed. "He probably can't even hear us. Old man's just here to die in peace." But Elijah heard. He always heard. Later that afternoon, Cole finished a swim drill and hit the showers alone. Steam clouded the mirrors and water echoed off tiled walls. He tossed his towel onto a bench and turned the faucet. As the water pounded against his skin, he saw a movement from the corner of his eye. Just the janitor, walking past, toolbox in hand. He wouldn't have cared. Except something caught his attention. The man was reaching up to fix a broken vent. His faded shirt rode up slightly, just enough for Cole to see it. The tattoo. It was no prison ink. No joke. A trident. Worn and faded, but unmistakable. Beneath it, the number 6874. Cole froze. The numbers meant nothing to him, but the trident? Every SEAL knew that symbol. And it wasn't the sort of thing you faked, not if you wanted to keep your teeth. Elijah, unaware, or pretending to be, finished the repair and moved on. Cole stood there, towel forgotten, his mind racing. He toweled off in silence, dressed quickly, and bolted to the base computer terminal used for training reference. He wasn't supposed to have access to deeper archives, but his cousin worked base IT. Cole had favors. He tapped quickly. Trident tattoo plus SEAL plus 6874. Nothing. He tried again. SEAL veteran plus 6874. The screen loaded a single entry, redacted. The name field was blacked out, but the classification code at the bottom read, Operation Firewell, Phantom Echo. The hairs on his arms rose. He clicked it. Access denied. He leaned back in his chair. Phantom Echo? That sounded like a ghost story. Back in the maintenance corridor, Elijah quietly cleaned a row of muddy footprints leading to the gear locker. As he knelt, his fingers paused over a scuffed pair of boots. They reminded him of another time, of boots caked in jungle mud, of days spent in silence behind enemy lines. He blinked. and the image vanished. Only the present remained. He didn't notice Raina Cruz watching him from down the hall. She wasn't sure what drew her attention. Maybe it was the way he moved with such precision, or the way he always seemed to sense things a second before they happened. She had seen that same kind of intuition in combat veterans her father had trained with. Her gut told her one thing: that man used to be dangerous. That night, Cole lingered near the storage shed where the janitor kept his supplies. He saw Elijah unlock the door and disappear inside. He waited a beat, then quietly moved to the window and peered through the slats. The old man sat on the edge of his cot, a faded photo in hand. A SEAL team, younger faces smeared with camo paint. One of them had Elijah's unmistakable eyes. Cole's breath caught. Before he could process it, Elijah suddenly looked up, directly at him. Their eyes met through the slats. Cole backed away fast and sprinted off into the dark. Inside the shed, Elijah gently placed the photo back beneath the floorboard. He stood, locked the door, and turned out the light. South one of them had seen. It had begun. Chapter 3. Shadows of Cambodia. Rain tapped softly against the roof of the shed as Elijah Rowe sat in the darkness, his breathing slow and controlled. The photo lay in his lap. The faces stared back at him, 6 men, drenched in sweat and smeared with jungle camouflage. They weren't smiling, but there was something stronger behind their eyes. Trust, brotherhood, survival. He ran his thumb over the corner of the picture, where the ink had begun to fade. Each scar on his body was a bookmark to that time. Cambodia, 1974. Operation Firewell, Phantom Echo. They had no unit patches, no official recognition. The missions didn't exist, but they had happened, and they had been betrayed. Flashback, Cambodian jungle, 1974. The air was thick with humidity and gun oil. Elijah crouched low in the underbrush, every movement calculated. His team flanked him, Will Harris on point, Sam Park on tech and demolitions, and 2 more ghosts behind them. They wore no insignia, no rank, just mud, shadows, and silence. Radio chatter buzzed softly in his earpiece. Phantom Echo, this is Control. Abort mission. Political situation has shifted. Return to extraction. Elijah pressed his finger to the transmitter. Negative, Control. American POWs confirmed on site. We proceed. That is a direct order, Phantom. Abort. Not when lives are on the line. There was silence on the other end, then a final transmission. You're on your own. They never looked back. Elijah led his team through the jungle under cover of night, infiltrating the camp and neutralizing hostiles with the precision of surgeons. They freed 7 American prisoners, skin and bones, eyes sunken, disbelief written across their faces. It wasn't just a mission. It was a promise fulfilled. For 26 days, they moved across enemy terrain, hunted, outgunned, and abandoned by their own command. 1 man didn't make it, but 6 did. And when they returned, there were no medals, no debriefs, only silence. Their files were sealed, their records erased, their team disbanded. Back to present day, Yao facility. Elijah snapped back to the present as thunder rumbled over the base. He folded the photo and tucked it back into its hiding place beneath the floorboard. They had tried to bury them. But ghosts don't rot. They remember. And now the cracks in the wall had begun to spread. In Building B, Cole Rollins sat in the dim glow of the terminal screen, a flash drive clutched in his palm. He had tried again to access the Phantom Echo file. Again, he had been locked out. But this time, he took screenshots, whatever fragments he could. A phrase lingered in one partially unredacted memo. Field actions unauthorized. Team was denied extraction per political discretion. Survivors classified as non-compliant. Non-compliant? They'd been abandoned. He stared at the line of text, heart pounding. In the back of his mind, the image of that tattoo, 6874, burned. He didn't know what it meant, but he was going to find out. Meanwhile, inside the mess hall's dim supply corridor, Reyna Cruz passed by the janitor's closet and paused. The light was on. She stepped closer. Through a crack in the door, she saw Elijah sitting silently, wiping mud from his boots with a precise rhythm. He wasn't just cleaning, he was preparing. For what, she didn't know. But instinct told her, this man was dangerous. Not in the way a thug is dangerous. Number. This was the quiet kind, the kind forged in war, burned by betrayal and tempered by time. She stepped back, unseen, unheard, but not untouched. That night, a storm rolled over the Yao facility. Winds rattled windows and rain slammed into rooftops. Inside the janitor's quarters, Elijah opened a second compartment beneath the cot. Inside was a waterproof pouch. He unzipped it. Inside, a military-issue sidearm, still oiled and clean. A folded letter marked, "Returned, undeliverable." A rusted SEAL insignia, and a thin metal disc, a challenge coin, not from the Navy, but from someone above, someone who had made promises, and broken them. Elijah stared at the items. Then, with hands slow and steady, he began to pack. Tomorrow, the next piece would move, because if the government didn't want the truth, he'd bring it to their doorstep, one ghost at a time. Chapter 4. Humiliation Rituals. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving behind a damp stillness that clung to the Yao facility like smoke after a firefight. The recruits were already on the field, stretching, limbering up for another day of grueling drills. Elijah Rowe had been up for hours. He swept the walkways with practiced ease, his movements fluid, quiet. The same muscles that had once carried wounded teammates through enemy jungle now guided a broom across concrete. He didn't mind the work. In silence, there was clarity. And clarity had always been Elijah's weapon. But silence didn't shield him from cruelty. As he moved through the edge of the obstacle field, Cole Rollins spotted him. "Morning, Grandpa," Cole called, loud enough to draw attention from nearby recruits. A few snickers followed. Elijah gave no reply. He kept sweeping. "Hey," Cole said to his friends, gesturing toward a cooler. "Let's help the old man hydrate." He walked over, picked up a half-empty sports bottle and squeezed it, aiming directly at Elijah's boots. Water splashed onto the mop, soaking the floor he had just cleaned. "Oops," Cole said with faux innocence. "Guess you missed a spot." Laughter broke out. A few recruits clapped him on the back. Elijah looked down at the wet floor, then up at Cole. Still, no words. He simply picked up the mop, wrung it out, and started over. Later, while mopping the mess hall after lunch, Elijah passed by a table where Logan Vance sat surrounded by his usual circle. Unlike Cole, Logan never laughed. He just watched, always watching. "Why do we even let people like that onto this base?" Logan said aloud, not looking at anyone. "It's disrespectful to the uniform." One of his followers muttered, "Maybe it's a charity placement." Another chimed in, "He probably doesn't even know where he is." Look at him, mopping like a machine. Logan didn't respond, but his eyes narrowed. That afternoon, Elijah returned to the utility closet to find the mop bucket filled not with clean water, but motor oil, thick, black, and pungent. He stared at it for a long moment, then emptied it, cleaned the bucket, and refilled it, without complaint. From the far end of the hallway, Reyna Cruz watched. She'd seen the prank, she'd seen the reaction, she'd expected frustration, anger, even a word. But she saw something worse. Nothing, no emotion, just detachment. Like someone who had lived through far crueler acts. And maybe, she thought, he had. That night, Elijah sat on the edge of his cot, sharpening a small utility knife. Outside his door, laughter echoed down the hallway. Cole and two others approached, high on adrenaline from passing their underwater endurance drill. They kicked open the maintenance closet door. "Well, look at that," Cole grinned. "Hard at work sharpening his mop handle." One of the others tossed a few ketchup packets onto the freshly mopped floor. "There. Now he has something to clean." Elijah looked at the mess, slowly stood, walked over. He crouched down and began wiping the ketchup. One of them stepped closer. "What's wrong, old man? Too scared to say something?" Elijah's hand froze for a fraction of a second, then resumed wiping, but this time his gaze rose, met Cole's eyes directly, and held it. Not angry, not afraid, just steady, cold, measured. Cole faltered. Just a second, but enough. He turned away. "Weirdo," he muttered. "Creeps me out." They left. Elijah finished cleaning, returned the mop to its place, and reached up to turn off the light. In the moment before darkness fell, his eyes flashed with something dangerous. Something that had been buried, and was no longer content to stay that way. Chapter 5. Cruz notices. The early morning light filtered through the steel blinds of the armory wing, casting narrow stripes across Reyna Cruz's face as she adjusted the scope on her training rifle. Her hands moved with efficiency, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She couldn't stop thinking about the janitor. The way he moved. The way he reacted. Or didn't. It wasn't just restraint. It was discipline. Familiar. Purposeful. The instructors demanded perfection, but Cruz had grown up around real soldiers. Her father had served in Force Recon. She'd watched the way seasoned veterans handled equipment, how they scanned a room without making it obvious, how they anticipated things before they happened. And that's what she saw in Elijah Rowe. Not a janitor, not just an old man, something more. Later that morning, while others ran a live fire drill on the training course, Cruz noticed Elijah cleaning near the range. A loud bang rang out from a flashbang detonation nearby, a routine part of the exercise. Most of the recruits flinched, but Elijah? He froze. Not the way a civilian might. No, it was something else. His eyes went wide, staring into a space beyond the walls. His muscles tightened, one hand twitching toward his side as if reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. She'd seen that kind of reaction before, combat memory. He wasn't scared. He was somewhere else. Jungle, gunfire, smoke. Then, just as quickly, the moment passed. He resumed sweeping, his movements seamless. But Cruz had seen it, and this time, she knew what she was looking at. That evening, as she passed the utility room, Cruz noticed the mop bucket was missing from its usual spot. Curious, she wandered further and spotted Elijah by the supply shed, bent over something in the corner. She was about to turn away until she saw movement in his hands. Something small, something injured. She took a cautious step closer, and that's when she saw it. A tiny sparrow, cradled in rags. Its wing was broken, trembling with shallow breaths. Elijah was fixing it. He wrapped the wing in a splint made from popsicle sticks and strips of gauze, his calloused fingers unusually gentle. Not rushed, not careless, precise. Cruz stepped on a twig. Elijah's head snapped up instantly, eyes alert, a soldier's reflex. But when he saw it was her, he didn't move. He simply said, "Found it in the trash pit. Someone probably stepped on it." Cruz nodded. "I won't tell anyone." A beat passed. Then he returned to the bird. Back in the barracks that night, Cruz couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, mind buzzing. The janitor wasn't just disciplined, or strange, or quiet. He was trained. He was hiding. But why? And from what? Elsewhere in the base, Cole Rollins stared at the training terminal. The image of the trident tattoo seared into his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw it. He tapped his flash drive against the desk, nervous energy rippling through his fingers. Then he searched a new phrase. Operation Phantom Echo. This time he didn't care about clearance. He just wanted truth, whatever it cost. Chapter 6. Classified Ghost. Cole Rollins sat alone in the dimly lit training lab, the glow from the terminal screen reflecting off his face. The silence of the base after hours had a strange weight to it, like secrets whispering through air vents. He typed in the restricted query again, Operation Phantom Echo. This time, instead of locking him out immediately, the screen stalled. Loading. Then, finally, Document Restricted. Redacted Material Classification Level. Echo 5 Clearance Required. Omega Blackfield Actions Unauthorized. Subject Denied Extraction. Team Designated Non-Compliant. Operation Code Firewell. Asset ER Disavowed. Cole stared. He didn't understand everything, but he understood enough. Whoever Elijah Rowe was, he had been erased. Not retired. Not forgotten. Erased. Back at the janitor's quarters, Elijah finished locking up his cleaning supplies when he noticed something out of place. The mop handle was warm. Someone had touched it. He scanned the corridor. No movement, no noise, but he could feel it. The air had shifted. Someone was watching. He didn't rush. He didn't speak. Instead, he turned out the light and returned to his cot. Beneath it, he reached for the bundle again, but this time, he unwrapped it. Inside was a worn seal badge, dulled with time, and a folded letter. The ink had faded, but the stamp was still clear. Returned. Recipient disavowed. He unfolded the note. Lieutenant Rowe, your actions, while effective, cannot be publicly recognized due to ongoing diplomatic efforts in Southeast Asia. For your protection and that of your team, your records will be sealed. This is not dishonor. This is containment. You served with distinction. But no one can ever know. Captain James Westlake. Elijah folded it again. Slowly, deliberately. He'd kept it not out of pride, but as proof. Proof that everything they'd built, everything they'd bled for, had been locked away. Meanwhile, in the upper levels of the facility, Logan Vance stood with arms crossed inside the surveillance room, watching the camera feeds cycle through the compound. He didn't trust the janitor, not because he looked suspicious, because he didn't. No one moved that precisely without training, and Logan had grown up around the military elite. He knew how to spot ghosts. Elijah Rowe, he muttered under his breath, pulling out a tablet. He opened a private file connected to Vance Defense Technologies. The screen lit up with keywords: Black Operations, Ghost Operators, Phantom Echo, Survivors, Unknown. He paused, then began a new search. E. Rowe, Cambodia, 1974. The screen blinked. No public record found, just like he expected. Back in the barracks, Cole approached Cruz in the common area, keeping his voice low. "I saw his tattoo," he whispered. "It's real. The trident, the numbers, 6874, Cruz's eyes sharpened. Vietnam-era SEAL registration. That's not standard anymore." Cole nodded. "I also found something in the restricted archives. Operation Phantom Echo. It's all redacted, but his initials are in it. E.R., Cruz repeated. "Elijah Rowe." "I think he's the last one," Cole said. "The last from that team. And someone went to a lot of trouble to erase him." Cruz didn't speak at first. She remembered the flash in Elijah's eyes during the flashbang, the way he moved, the wounded bird in his hands. "He's not hiding," she finally said. "He's waiting." That night, as the moon rose above the base, Elijah stood outside the mess hall, looking up at the flag fluttering in the night wind. His hand brushed the folded letter in his pocket. For years he'd let them win. He'd cleaned their floors, scrubbed their lies. But now they had a name. Now the past was awake. And soon, so would the ghosts. Chapter 7. The Surveillance. The surveillance room on the third floor of Building A never slept. Rows of monitors displayed every corner of the compound, the barracks, the armory, the obstacle field, even the break rooms. Logan Vance stood with hands clasped behind his back, eyes narrowed at the flickering screen that showed the utility corridor. The janitor was in frame. Moving mop and bucket, nothing strange. And yet, too clean, too smooth. He tapped the side of the monitor. Zoom in. The technician beside him hesitated. Sir, he's just... Zoom, Logan repeated. The image sharpened. They watched Elijah wipe the same square of floor 3 times, then pause for exactly 2 seconds before moving to the next. He never turned his head, never missed a beat. Who the hell taught a janitor perimeter sweep discipline? Logan muttered. The tech blinked. What? Nothing, Logan said flatly. He tapped his earpiece. I want camera 7 rerouted to loop from last week. No live feed in that corridor for the next 12 hours. But sir, do it. Down below, Elijah continued working, fully aware that the camera light above him had blinked twice. That wasn't an accident. They were watching him. And now, they were trying not to. That meant someone was nervous. Good. He was done hiding. In another corner of the facility, Cruz sat at a terminal station. She wasn't supposed to be there after hours, but her access for admin support gave her just enough leeway. She plugged in Cole's flash drive. It took several minutes of careful backdoor navigation, but she found it. A fragmented data trail from the restricted Phantom Echo archive. Most files were redacted, but one document had a fragment she hadn't seen before. A memo marked Top Secret, Unsanctioned Field Op, with coordinates in Southeast Asia and a line that stopped her breath. Operator Echo Lead refused direct abort order, proceeded with extraction of 7 POWs. Team status post-op, missing, presumed, non-compliant. Case sealed per directive from Pryor, M. Pryor, M? Cruz whispered. Malcolm Pryor? The name sent a chill through her spine. She'd seen it on contracts stamped with Vance Defense Technologies. The next morning, Elijah was raking leaves near the east perimeter when he noticed something glinting in the dirt. He knelt, brushed away the soil. A dog tag, freshly dropped. Not his, not standard issue. He didn't take it to the lost and found. He polished it that night, checked the name, Jensen, T. One of the quieter recruits. The one who had spoken up a few days earlier, defending Elijah when no one else would. By morning, Jensen was gone. The official word, voluntary withdrawal. But his bunk was untouched, his gear still in the locker. Elijah sat on the edge of his cot, dog tag in hand. They were starting to disappear, the ones who noticed. Just like they had in 1974. That night, in the shadows of the mess hall, Cole slipped into the storage closet where Cruz was waiting. They spread out printed fragments of what they had gathered, operation code names, coordinates, ghost unit names. At the center of it all was a man marked as Echo Lead. Cole tapped a faded photograph clipped from the corner of a forgotten personnel file. It was grainy, but there he was, younger, sharper, but unmistakably Elijah Rowe. Whatever he's hiding, Cole said, he has his reasons. No, Cruz replied, eyes locked on the image. He's not hiding. He's protecting something. Meanwhile, above them, in a sleek, glass-walled trailer stationed on the edge of the compound, Malcolm Pryor sat with Logan Vance. The tension between them was thick. We have a problem, Pryor said coldly. Rowe is making connections. I've got eyes on the situation, Logan said. We're already isolating the recruits he's interacted with. Not fast enough. Pryor slid a folder across the desk. Inside, surveillance shots. Cruz and Cole, their conversations, their faces. If he starts talking about Cambodia, or Firewell, or God help us, Phantom Echo, I want him neutralized, and I want it clean. Logan's jaw tightened. Yes, sir. Pryor stood, adjusted his cufflinks, and stepped into the darkness. Logan stared down at the images. Something flickered behind his eyes. Doubt? Or something else? Back in the maintenance room, Elijah slid the dog tag into a tin box beneath the floorboard, next to 6 others. The past was catching up, but this time he wasn't going to run. This time they'd be the ones in the dark. Chapter 8. Broken Orders. Elijah Rowe rarely spoke during drills. He swept the grounds, cleaned the halls, tightened bolts, replaced light bulbs. Always silent, always unnoticed. That was the design. That was survival. But the silence was starting to fray. One morning, as Cole Rollins strutted around the edge of the pool during underwater endurance training, he couldn't resist showing off. "This tests nothing," he bragged. "I can hold my breath longer than any of you. Hell, longer than the instructors." From the edge, Elijah pushed a mop across the tile, eyes seemingly unfocused. "Don't exhale under pressure," he said quietly, barely above a whisper. Cole paused. "What did you say?" he asked, frowning, but Elijah was already walking away. Hours later, Cole found himself underwater, doing a depth tolerance simulation. He'd ignored the breathing instructions, exhaled too much. Panic crept in, chest tight, vision narrowing. By the time the instructor pulled him out, he was barely conscious, choking on pool water. As he coughed on the tile, his blurry vision caught a figure behind the window of the natatorium. Elijah, calmly cleaning the windows. His face unreadable, his eyes aware. No satisfaction, just certainty. That night, while sweeping the training yard, Elijah found a folded note on the ground near his cot. "Stop digging up the past, or be buried with it." There was no signature. Just a dead sparrow pinned under a rock near the doorway. The same bird he'd nursed back to health. He picked it up without flinching, wrapped it in cloth, and buried it behind the maintenance shed, next to a spot where an older sparrow had once healed. Then he burned the note. Watching the paper curl and blacken, his jaw locked tight. Inside the barracks, Cruz examined a set of documents she had pulled from a decommissioned archive box using a borrowed clearance code. She found a memo. A letter addressed to Elijah Rowe. To Lieutenant E. Rowe, recommendation for Navy Cross in connection with unauthorized rescue operation. Heroism above and beyond call of duty. Stamped at the bottom, returned, disavowed. She stared at the ink, faded but legible. There was a sticky note attached in handwriting. No recognition, no controversy. White House directive. Cruz's blood chilled. The next morning, another recruit, Jensen, failed to appear for drills. Voluntary dropout, they said. Cruz knew better. She had spoken to Jensen the day before. He had questions about Elijah. He wasn't planning to quit. His locker was still full. His car was still in the lot, just like Jackson the week before. Both had tried to defend Elijah. Both were now gone. In the mess hall, Logan Vance watched Elijah from across the room, a smug smirk curling at the corner of his mouth. Then, deliberately, Logan walked to Elijah's meal tray on the counter and dumped the entire contents on the floor. "Clean it up, old man," he said with venom. The room went silent. Forks froze mid-air. Elijah looked down at the spilled food, then up at Logan. "You should pray you never have to learn why I keep my hands to myself," Elijah said softly. "No anger, no threat, just fact." Logan's smirk faltered for half a second, but only half. He forced a laugh, turned, and walked away. But Cruz had seen it, that flicker of fear in his eyes. It meant something was shifting. And maybe for the first time, Logan wasn't in control anymore. Chapter 9. The first disappearance. It started with whispers. Whispers about Jackson, a recruit who had spoken out just once, quietly, cautiously, after witnessing Elijah clean up yet another cruel prank. He'd murmured in the barracks, "That's not just a janitor. That man's been through something." The next morning, he was gone. No formal announcement, no official withdrawal, just vanished. His bunk made, his locker full, his personal gear untouched. A ghost, erased in a facility that trained soldiers to see everything. Cruz noticed first, then Cole, then others. That evening, Cruz confronted her instructor, trying to sound casual. "Sir, where's Recruit Jackson?" "Dropped out." "But didn't have what it takes," the instructor snapped. "Focus on your own progress, Recruit Cruz." He turned away before she could ask more. But Cruz didn't let it go. Back in her quarters, she accessed the internal base system, only to find Jackson's file locked, not deactivated, locked. She looked up the last location pinged by his badge, the utility corridor, the same corridor where Elijah worked every night. Meanwhile, Cole had broken into the instructor database again, this time under a scrambled maintenance login. He looked up operation names that matched the tattoo, 6874. Nothing. But under declassified Navy SEAL records, buried inside a Vietnam-era archive, he found a small image scanned from microfilm. A team of 6. One of them clearly younger Elijah. The caption read, "Phantom Echo, Denied Area Recovery Unit. Status, disbanded. Recognition, classified." And underneath, in a faded stamp, "Do not contact or publicly acknowledge." Cole's stomach twisted. He leaned back from the terminal. Whatever Elijah had done, it had been written out of history. That night, Cruz returned to the maintenance shed, expecting to find it locked. It wasn't. Inside, Elijah sat on his cot, quietly polishing a worn metal medallion, an old SEAL challenge coin with notches cut along the edge. "I found a letter," she said softly, stepping in. "A recommendation for the Navy Cross. It had your name. It was returned." Elijah didn't look up. "I know," he said. "They erased you." "Not the first time," he muttered. "Jackson didn't quit, did he?" she asked. "Just like Jensen didn't." Elijah set the coin down, finally looked at her. His eyes, deep and tired, met hers. "They're making ghosts again," he said, "like they did to us." Cruz sat down on a nearby crate. "I'm not afraid of ghosts," she said. Elijah gave her a look, half disbelief, half respect. "You will be," he said quietly, "if you keep asking the right questions." In the surveillance trailer, Logan Vance watched the footage, Cruz entering the shed, talking to Rowe. He tapped his earpiece. "They're connecting," he said coldly. "We need to escalate." On the other end, Malcolm Pryor's voice answered, "Good. Let the old man feel like he's getting close." A pause. Then shut it all down. Chapter 10. The Warning. The note came just before lights out. Cruz found it tucked inside her folded uniform in the locker. No envelope, just a torn scrap of paper. "Stop, or disappear like Jackson." She read it twice, then a third time. Someone knew she was getting too close. But it didn't scare her. It pissed her off. Meanwhile, Cole slipped through the back of the admin building, avoiding security cams he'd memorized from Cruz's diagram. Inside a restricted server room, he plugged in a second flash drive, this one encoded with a tracking backdoor. The moment it connected, dozens of redacted files flickered onto the screen. Phantom Echo, Operation Firewell, Denied Area Activity, Personnel, Rowe, E, Park, S, Harris, W, Delgado, F, Winters, M, Westlake. J. Cole's eyes widened. They were real. He pulled up another document. Status: surviving operators considered security risk. All surveillance delegated to private contractor, Vance Defense Technologies. He barely had time to screenshot it before the system locked him out. The next morning, Cruz confronted Commander Briggs outside the mess hall. "Sir, I need to speak to you, off the record." Briggs, annoyed, waved her off. "Not the time, recruit." "It's about Elijah Rowe and Phantom Echo." Briggs froze. She saw it. The slight flinch, the loss of breath. He looked around, then opened the door to his office. "Inside, now." She placed the Navy Cross letter on his desk. "Who is he, sir?" Briggs didn't answer immediately. Then, "You need to walk away from this, for your own safety." "He's being erased," she insisted. Again. Like in 1974, Briggs sat down slowly, as if something heavy pressed on his back. "Some wars never make it into history books," he said quietly. "Some heroes never get parades. Elijah Rowe is one of them. And the people erasing him? They're not done." Cruz leaned forward. "Then help us stop them." Briggs stared at her a long time, then opened his bottom drawer, pulled out a manila envelope. Names, files, maps, redacted memos, evidence. He slid it across the desk. "Take this, but lock your footlocker tonight, and trust no one." That night, someone broke into Elijah's quarters. They ransacked his belongings, flipped the cot, pulled out floorboards, but missed the loose vent in the corner, the true hiding spot. Inside was his pistol, his files, and a burning resolve. They'd just declared war. At 0400 hours, Cole met Cruz behind the equipment shed. "They're going after him," he said, "and after us." "I know," she replied. "Briggs gave us this." She handed him the envelope. He flipped it open. Inside, satellite images of an old jungle ruin, with American SEAL equipment half buried beneath leaves. A place that shouldn't exist. And stamped across the page in red, "Phantom Echo, Confidential." A final note in Briggs's handwriting read, "Now you know. Be careful who you trust. They're still watching." Chapter 11. Exposure. The air inside the storage bunker was stale. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Cruz, Cole, and Elijah sat huddled around the documents from Commander Briggs. Cole laid out the photographs, jungle ruins, sealed folders, and grainy surveillance images of soldiers moving through dense Cambodian foliage. Some wore SEAL uniforms, some didn't. Cruz ran her finger over a blurred signature stamped onto a confidential report. Malcolm Pryor. "The man behind Advanced Defense Technologies," she muttered. Elijah nodded slowly. "He was the one who called off our extraction. Back then, he was just a liaison officer." "And now?" Cole asked. "He's a kingmaker," Elijah said, "cleaning up the ghosts he created." Later that day, while helping organize training gear, Cruz slipped one of the printed images into a locker belonging to Martinez, one of the newer recruits who had been watching quietly. Inside the photo sleeve was a sticky note. "Ask about the man who saved 7 POWs in 1974. Ask who they're trying to erase." Within 24 hours, 4 other recruits had received similar messages, strategically left in boots, water bottles, even sandbags on the field. A ripple had begun, and Logan Vance could feel it. In the surveillance room, Logan barked at his tech team. "Why the spike in base chatter around Rowe?" "Sir," one tech replied, "someone's distributing non-military materials, unmarked papers, photos. Track it," Logan ordered. But the trail was already cold. That night, a message appeared on Elijah's cot, handwritten in neat block letters. "We believe you. What do you need us to do?" No name, just a folded bandana in the colors of Phantom Echo, an old recognition code. Elijah tucked it into his pocket. Meanwhile, Malcolm Pryor stood in a private airfield hangar, speaking into a secure comms link. "They're spreading the story," he said calmly, "about Cambodia, about the rescue." On the other end, a deep voice replied, "Shut it down." Pryor smiled coldly. "I already have a plan." The next morning, an announcement went out. "Recruits Cruz and Rollins are hereby suspended pending investigation into unauthorized access and distribution of classified material." But when the MPs arrived at their bunks, they were gone. Elijah had seen this move before. He had them out an hour before dawn, hidden, safe, for now. Chapter 12. The Interrogation. The storm rolled in just after nightfall. Thunder echoed across the compound as a black SUV pulled up to the side of Building D. Inside, two private contractors in tactical gear hauled recruit Jackson, gagged, bruised but alive, into a darkened storage room repurposed as an interrogation site. He wasn't supposed to be here. He was supposed to be gone. But Malcolm Pryor had other plans. "Make it quiet," Pryor instructed the contractors. "But thorough. I want to know everything," Rowe told him. Meanwhile, Cruz and Cole hid in a tunnel beneath the decommissioned West Wing, a space Elijah remembered from decades ago, when this compound still trained men like him. "I thought they'd just expel us," Cruz whispered. "They tried to make Jackson disappear," Cole said. "That was the warning." From a satchel, Elijah pulled out an old SEAL operations radio, outdated but still serviceable. He tuned into the security band, static, then voices. "Jackson in room 4B, subject resisting, orders to proceed." Cole looked at Cruz. "He's alive," Elijah nodded. "Then we get him out." Inside room 4B, Jackson's head lolled forward. One eye swollen shut, his wrists bound tight behind a chair. A man in a dark suit paced slowly before him. Not Logan, Malcolm Pryor. "You've spoken to Rowe," Pryor said calmly. "Tell me what he said." Jackson remained silent. Pryor sighed. "You know what makes people like Rowe dangerous?" he asked. "They inspire loyalty in people who should know better. People like you." Jackson spat blood. "I'd follow that janitor into hell before I'd shake your damn hand." Pryor's face darkened. "Then we'll burn both," he said coldly, signaling the guard. Outside, Cruz and Cole crept through a maintenance corridor, guided by Elijah's memory and the dim red glow of backup lights. At the end of the hall, a locked metal door barred their path. Cruz tapped her comm. "Elijah, we're here. Room 4B, locked." "Stand back," came his voice. A moment later, a low bang echoed as a small-shaped charge detonated, one of Elijah's field-rigged tools from long ago. The door swung open. Smoke, confusion. Elijah burst in first, two guards down before they could react. Non-lethal takedowns, precise and fast. Cruz rushed to Jackson. "Can you move?" she asked. "Try me," he groaned, smiling weakly through blood. They got him out, clean, fast, like ghosts. By morning, the storage room was empty. Only the broken restraints remained. Pryor stood in the doorway, seething. "Get me Logan," he barked. "Now!" That afternoon, in the remote mountain cabin, Jackson reclined on a cot, a blanket over his shoulders. Cruz handed him water. "Didn't expect a rescue," he rasped. "Neither did they," Cole replied. Jackson looked at Elijah, who sat silently by the window listening to the wind. "You're really him, huh?" Jackson asked. "The one from Cambodia?" Elijah didn't answer. Didn't need to. Chapter 13. Ghost Protocol. The cabin deep in the hills buzzed with quiet energy. Radios hummed. Maps were unfurled across the table. Dossiers spread beside gear bags. Everything pointed to one thing, a mission. Cruz, Cole, Jackson, and Elijah had moved from hiding to preparing. "Elijah," Cruz asked, holding a file stamped Site Bravo, restricted access. "Why are they accelerating?" "Why now?" Elijah looked up from a disassembled field weapon he was checking. "Because ghosts have a shelf life, and I've been haunting this place too long." He stood and tapped the map, marked with coordinates, patrol routes, guard towers. "This is where they took the rest of my team. They said they were dead. But I've seen the satellite scans, the movement, the signatures match. They're alive, and Pryor knows if I expose that, the whole house of cards falls." Back at the SEAL training compound, Logan Vance walked briskly through the halls, clipboard in hand, flanked by two Vance defense contractors. Recruits stepped out of his way. Instructors avoided eye contact. He was no longer hiding his authority. "Begin lockdown protocol," Logan ordered. No one in or out without biometric clearance. I want every storage locker, every unassigned quarter searched. Yes, sir. And if you find Cruz, Rollins, or that old man, he paused, don't bring them back. In the woods, Elijah prepped Cruz and Cole on the plan. You'll handle the comms, he told Cole. Scramble their frequency, disrupt drone oversight. And me? Cruz asked. You're going back in, Elijah said. You still have friends on the inside. Jackson will help coordinate with them. You want me to start a resistance? I want you to wake them up, he said. Show them what they've signed up for. Cruz smirked. I've been dying to give a speech. That night, Elijah walked to the edge of the tree line, watching the facility far below. Floodlights scanned the outer perimeter. Drones circled overhead. But he wasn't afraid. He knew every inch of that compound. He'd built half the escape routes, and soon he would tear down what they'd turned it into. Cole stepped beside him. You sure you're ready for this? He asked. Elijah didn't respond right away. Then, this isn't about readiness. It's about finishing. Inside the compound, Logan stood in the surveillance room. He watched the footage from the mess hall, paused it, zoomed in on the reflection in a metal food tray. Elijah Rowe. He hadn't been there in hours, yet his presence was still felt. Ghost protocol, Logan whispered. You think you're the only one who can play this game? He tapped a code into the terminal. Accessed Site Bravo security. Activate Phase Red, bring in the strike team. The screen confirmed it. Operation, Silencer, Objective. Erase Ghost Protocol. ETA, 0600 hours. Back in the cabin, Elijah suited up. The janitor's uniform was gone. He now wore reinforced field gear, faded, patched, but functional. On his chest, the Phantom Echo insignia. He glanced at the folded flag patch Cruz had given him. He tucked it into his vest. This time, he muttered, they remember. Chapter 14. The Storm. The rain arrived with fury. Sheets of water lashed the compound as thunder rolled overhead. Floodlights flickered. Sensors glitched, the perfect cover for what was about to unfold. From the tree line, Elijah Rowe crouched beside Cole and Sam Park. Another Phantom Echo veteran Cruz had smuggled in through Eddie's network. Sam was older now, but his demolitions expertise remained razor-sharp. You're sure we go at 0600? Cole asked, clutching a soaked comms map. Elijah checked his watch. No, he said. We go now. At the same time, inside the compound, Cruz moved like a shadow through the training wing, slipping between walls of lockers and sleeping recruits. She reached a hidden maintenance tunnel. Inside, Jackson and 5 others waited, recruits who had quietly defected after seeing what Logan and Pryor were really doing. Tonight we don't train, Cruz whispered. Tonight we fight. She handed out radios and hand-drawn maps. Jackson grinned. Let's cause a blackout. At 5:17, the first blast hit. A non-lethal charge placed by Sam blew the eastern sensor hub, disabling drone coverage over the facility's rear flank. Within minutes, the second team, Cole and Michael Winters, breached the perimeter gate near Site Bravo using old SEAL hand signals and pure stealth. Elijah moved fast, low, precise, ghost-like. They reached the reinforced holding wing, where the rest of Phantom Echo was believed to be kept. Elijah pressed his hand to the lock. A memory hit him. Gunfire in the Cambodian night, a radio crackling. Extraction canceled. You're on your own. Not this time. Not again. Inside the command trailer, Logan Vance barked into his headset. We've been breached. South corridor. Full lockdown. Too late, came the reply, from a hijacked internal channel. Cruz's voice. You're training killers. We're training resistance. Game on, Vance. Back in the bunker, Elijah and Cole cut through the last lock. The door opened. And there they were. 5 men. wasted but alive, strapped to old hospital beds, IVs running, eyes foggy but aware. Elijah dropped to his knees beside one. "Will," he whispered. Will Harris blinked. His voice cracked. "You finally made it." Alarms screamed overhead. Security forces closed in. Cole handed Elijah a sidearm. Sam dropped a smoke grenade down the hall. They moved like one. Cover, lift, extract. They didn't fight to kill. They fought to escape. To remember. Outside, Cruz and Jackson's team detonated the northern transformer. The lights across the base died. Only the red glow of emergency lighting remained. Ghost colors. In the chaos, Malcolm Pryor arrived by helicopter, only to find his secure trailer burning, smoke billowing into the sky. Inside, the drives were gone, files stolen, everything he'd buried, unearthed. He screamed at his guard, "Where's Roe?" But there was no answer, only rain and fire. At 6 a.m. sharp, a convoy of unmarked trucks left the facility, heading toward the mountain road. Inside, Elijah, Cole, Cruz, the rescued team, Phantom Echo, reunited for the first time in 40 years. Elijah looked back at the burning lights in the valley. "Now they know," he murmured. Chapter 15. Ghosts Never Fade. The dawn that broke over the mountain ridge was quiet. Too quiet. No more sirens, no barking instructors, no buzzing drones, just wind, rain-washed earth, and the rumble of the convoy pushing deeper into the highlands, toward Eddie Burke's safe house, nestled beyond radar reach. Inside the lead vehicle, Elijah Rowe sat beside Will Harris, whose breathing had steadied. Across from them, Cole nodded off against the window, utterly spent. Cruz sat in the back, her eyes scanning the road behind them. No pursuit, not yet. Hours later at the cabin, medical gear covered the living room floor, IVs, gauze, rehydration kits, supplied by former allies through Phantom Echo's secret network. Will, Delgado, Winters, Sam, all alive, all home, but not whole. Cruz stood near the window. They kept them drugged, conscious just enough to remember. Elijah said nothing. He already knew. Meanwhile, back at the compound, the aftermath had begun. Commander Briggs, reinstated by naval intelligence once Cruz's flash drive reached the right hands, stood before the assembled recruits. Pryor was gone, disavowed, under federal investigation. Logan Vance was missing. Some believed he fled. Others whispered he never made it off the base. Either way, the Empire was falling. Briggs pointed at the wall of honor, now fully restored. "Read these names," he said. "These men served with no recognition, no medals, no safety net. We owe them everything." And in the bottom corner, newly mounted under fresh glass, Lieutenant Elijah Rowe Phantom Echo, Cambodia, 1974, no one left behind. At the cabin, the old team gathered around the fire. No uniforms, no rank, just ghosts of men who refused to stay buried. Cole poured coffee. Cruz brought out a folded flag. "I think this is yours," she said, handing it to Elijah. He unfolded it gently. The patch was faded, torn, but still there, still whole, like them. Later, Cruz stepped outside. Elijah followed. They stood in silence. The valley stretched before them. "Now what?" she asked. Elijah looked at the sunrise. "I disappear," he said simply. "I don't think you can anymore," she replied. He gave a faint smile. "Then I choose the shadows I haunt." As he walked away, no weapons, no uniform, just a pack on his back, Cruz called after him. "They'll tell your story now, you know." He paused. Then, without turning back, he answered, "Let them." Epilogue. Weeks later, a training class stood at attention before the restored wall of honor. One young recruit leaned toward his friend. "Who's that guy? The janitor?" The other pointed to the placard. "Lieutenant Elijah Rowe, SEAL Ghost, Legend." The first shook his head. "No way that's real," A voice behind them cut in. Cruz, now an instructor. Then maybe you're not ready to wear that trident.